Good morning, and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're joining from. Hello, everyone. I'm Trish Lindo, and this is Too Ambitious. I'm so happy everybody's here right now. Please let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. As you all know, this is a live series that celebrates Black women and women of color entrepreneurs who are changing the world. They are resilient, they're extraordinary, they are innovative, and I'm super happy that I've created this space for these extraordinary women. So give it up in the comments. Let me know how you all want to show us some love. I want to see all the heart emojis. I want to see all the love. And also, too, like I said, let me know where you all are joining from. I know the weather has been crazy everywhere. So I hope everyone is safe and staying warm, because we're not going to talk about the weather because I'm still looking for sunshine. Seriously, where is it? Right? All right. Well, today I'm so excited to have one of the most extraordinary women I've ever met on our show today, Kalina Bryant. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about this phenomenal woman. She is a 2022 Forbes 30 Under 30 North America honoree. She's also a Forbes contributor and the CEO founder of UnapologeTECH. She is amazing, and I want you all to give her a warm welcome. Welcome to Too Ambitious, Miss Kalina Bryant.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon for those on the East Coast. Excited to be here, Trish.
Yes. I'm so happy that you're here on this lovely Thursday. Not quite Friday yet, but you're looking amazing this morning. So thank you for joining me.
Trying to keep up with you, Miss Trish.
Hey now. Well, I appreciate you so much, Kalina. And just a little background for the audience. I met Kalina probably maybe almost 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Our lovely friend Ty Heath introduced us, and the love fest has continued ever since. So, when you get a chance to meet amazing women, you love to, keep them in your circle and keep up with what they're doing. But I'm always inspired by the work that you're doing. And so, let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about, how did you come up with the name for your company and your brand, Unapologetic, and why?
Yes, definitely. So I'm actually celebrating 10 years this year in tech.
Hey.
I'm still alive. And so I would say back in 2019, I think it was right before George Floyd, I was working at a very hot startup. I was building customer marketing, brand marketing, and influencer marketing, and it was great. I didn't realize, well, I didn't, yes, I did realize I was the only African American woman on the leadership team, actually only African American in general in leadership. And at first I used to pride myself saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be the first person in the room to really prove, like, hey, this is what excellence looks like." And you don't realize how draining that is until I would say when George Floyd happened. I was focused on customer engagement and building brand awareness through our customers. All of a sudden, I became a PR person and was writing blogs and like where the company stood on this matter. And was pulled into a room saying, "Okay, well, what do we write here? It's a blank paper. You write it." And usually I'm all for it. I'm always for the extracurricular activities, building ERGs from scratch, you name it. But for the first time, I was drained. And I didn't know how to actually articulate that. So I remember going to a friend's house who actually is now my web developer. Shout out to Peter. He listens to all my problems. So we were sitting down over sushi playing Rihanna. And he's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I was like, "Maybe I'll do a blog. Maybe I'll do something." And I was like, I just get tired of like not being able to articulate my voice and be heard. And I was like, well, if I feel this way, there has to be other people that look like me that feel this way. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, maybe I'll do like, I guess an interview. I was used to doing webinars all the time with customers. And so then we were like, I was like, think a podcast. And he was like, well, what are you going to call it? And I was like, I just want people to be unapologetically themselves. And again, Rihanna's in the background. And then I was like, oh, wait a second, but it has to be involved around tech because that's what I'm living. So we were sketching out, and then I sketch out Unapologetic and then capitalize tech. And he's like, if you don't take this, I'll take it. And I was like, I'll take it. And so before you know it, this idea, basically living through just like exhaustion turned into a podcast. And then from there, the podcast got amazing reviews. That was before everyone was doing podcasts, right?
Right.
And I would say the podcast turned into speaking engagements and then turned into trainings and coaching. And randomly, organically, I was having people reach out saying, hey, I really don't like my job anymore, Kalina. How can you help me pivot?
Yeah.
And so people were willing to write checks to just basically get time to say, here's my resume, here's what I don't like, here's what I do like, how do I get out of this situation?
Right.
And so that was up my alley, and that turned into coaching. And I didn't want to, start changing the name, saying, okay, well, this is Unapologetic Podcast. So I said, well, why can't I just have an empire? And I started thinking about all my tech companies, and basically they don't change the name of the tech company; they just have segments. So I said, well, why can't you have
Mm.
segments?
Yeah.
So I basically took the blueprint that I was navigating in tech and said, well, if I know how to navigate this blueprint and I'm seeing success, you're seeing IPOs left and right. And I said, well, why
Right.
can't I do something for myself and actually have a purpose? And
Right.
voila, we had Unapologetic.
Yeah, and congratulations to you, because obviously you found the white space there, and you have created something that has resonated with so many women. How does that feel for you to not only create such an empowering brand, but you're changing people's lives too? How does that feel?
I would say it feels scary. But I would also say sometimes, and I think this goes to a lot of Black women, especially just women of color in general, we put our heads down all the time, and we're taught like just to be excellent and just keep persevering. You don't
Yeah.
really look up to see like how awesome you are. And it wasn't too long ago before people weren't giving you your flowers. People don't pull you aside saying, "Oh, that's amazing." People are actually just, when you're actually really great, that's when you get the most haters.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I was like, "Oh my God," and I'm an only child, very introvert. People don't realize I'm an introvert. And so I didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, I just don't want people to
Yeah.
not like what I'm doing. And
Right.
when you get over that hat, you realize, wow, you're kind of exceptional because you're taking an idea in your brain, putting it on paper, and then
Yeah.
figuring out how to execute. And if you
Yeah.
think about it, that's a true entrepreneur. That's what these tech companies are. When you think about all the tech companies that people are dying to work for, it literally was just an idea in someone's head. They wrote it, they rallied up some of their friends or colleagues or old colleagues, and then they went for it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing. And I think that if we had enough people rooting for others, especially Black women, imagine what could be created. I think even if you think about me and you, Trish, 2 years ago, we were just connecting, just vibing. And now
Yeah.
I'm on your show. And it's like, if we support one another, imagine how phenomenal we can all be. So
Yeah.
that's what I keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about building those relationships and building that community that's going to support us, throughout our careers and, whatever endeavors that we decide to, explore, because we're all always changing, right? When I think about tech, I work in tech, you've worked in tech for over 10 years. What was it about this industry that made you say you wanted to be a part of it? To continue to work in it and also to lift up others within the tech industry? What made it different than, let's say, becoming like a banker or something like that?
Well, number one, kudos to bankers, but I'm not going to do that. I'm
Me
not gonna
neither.
be a doctor. I'm not gonna be a nurse. I love all of those people, but I like that they do it. But I guess taking a step back, I've become a little bit more spiritual as I navigate my journey. And the saying like "what is for you will be." I would
Yes.
say that's tech for me. So when I was graduating, I was also nannying at the same time, and I just happened to nanny the right kid at the right time, I would say. There was a person that was working, or his girlfriend. So I was babysitting for a father. He was going on a date. He knew that I was always studying late at night after I put his kids to sleep. He was like, "Are you going to go to get your master's right away, Queen? Or are you going to work?" And I was like, "I'm going to work for maybe a year and then you'll get my master's." He's like, "I'm going to have a talk with, his girlfriend." I had no idea she was the vice president of mid-market sales at Marketo. And for the tech veterans out there, Marketo was a very, very booming company at that time. They had kind of made history being a public traded company and designing marketing automation. And so she said, "Give me a call, and we'll figure it out." I actually didn't call her right away. I was trying to get an internship, I think, at like Edelman's. And now I don't even know why. I just thought, oh, that's a sexy name. I think I should work there. So I gave her a call. I remember driving to San Mateo before it took 30 minutes maybe for an interview before I left the parking lot. They said, "You start on Monday." I said, "Okay." And this is like sales development role. I was like, "I don't know if I'm a salesperson. I don't know what I should do." I talked to my parents. They're like, "You're a salesperson. You can do it." And I wouldn't say it fell in my lap, but I would say that I was prepared and I was very driven and very focused to say, I want to be successful. I need to make money. I need to figure out how to design like my success, my future. And
Yes.
back then, you graduate college, success in our eyes is getting a job.
Yeah.
And so graduation was in May. I was working by June, I think 30th. And so that's how tech sort of worked for me. And then all of a sudden, I walked into a sales floor where there was, again, nothing but white people. And, the reason why I say it that way is because, you go to a predominantly all white school. And then you think, okay, when I enter into the real world, it's no longer going to be like that. That's not true. It's actually just preparing you for exactly that. And I would say walking into that floor, you don't have anyone that can relate to you. They're looking at you like, wow, where did this person come from? So you're like the elephant in the room and they're like kind of obsessed with you, but they're not going to say it. And then you're sitting in the background saying, how do I be excellent when I don't understand their rhythm?
Right.
Um, and so I would say the challenge, instead of quitting, there was times where I was coming home just bawling, crying, saying, I don't fit in. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And I would say my parents were like, well, this is a new challenge. You don't quit, you figure it out. And so that's how I kind of had this love hate relationship for tech. It was learning how to be resilient, learning how to not walk away, and learning how to basically stand in an uncomfortable situation. And
Yeah.
that's what tech was for me, very, very uncomfortable. So I figured out, well, how can I still be myself, but be the best? Right. And, when you're in sales, it's very easy to be the best. It's a playbook of there's the numbers, you hit
Right.
those numbers, and no matter if you're weird or different, when you start hitting the numbers, people want to be around you. People are attracted to how are you actually figuring this out when they can. Um, and so I just looked at the diversity was just lacking. So every floor at that time, I think Mercado had like 8 different levels, and every level they had an espresso machine and a kitchen. So I didn't have any friends on, the I think 6th floor because it was just very like cold and different. So I went on every other floor until I found a black person. And so engineer had a black person, and education had a few black ladies. So I would wake up, go to work, make coffee, do my whole sales process for first few, I would say 2 hours, then go to each floor and go make friends. And I didn't realize that that was building a community before we were defining a community. That was figuring out, instead of me quitting, I figured out which floor can I find someone that will accept me and will give me an outlet. And so to this day, these people are still my friends.
Love that. I mean, I think we all, well, if you're a Black person or a person of color, we all know that feeling of being the only in, a predominantly white space and looking for friends and looking for someone that you can connect with. To your point, I did the same thing in a lot of the companies that I've worked at as well, and sometimes too, it's not even someone who is necessarily in the same industry as you. I have made friends with, the UPS man. I've made friends with, the person who is, let's say the janitor or someone who is helping out in the office, because you do need that community to get through, the days sometimes. So I completely understand that. And I love that you use that to drive you and to, become even more successful than, ever thought was possible. And so when you're talking about working in these corporate spaces, were you building Unapologetic at the same time? And if so, what was that experience like to navigate both worlds?
Interesting to say that. So I would say, I guess I've always been building on apologetic. It just didn't have a name to it.
Okay.
So in the early phases of me working in tech, I was writing. So I was writing out all of the thoughts. It was like a personal journal. And then when I was, I think I got a different tech job at Anaplan, I think it was. And that was me moving into working in San Francisco instead of San Mateo. So I was taking the BART from little Oakland going into San Francisco. Before I was so like grimy, the BART. I'm so disappointed in how the BART is now. But I would take the BART, and after work, I would get back on the BART, and I would be so exhausted in my head. So I just learned to just write everything down, and figure out like, hey, here is my love letter to the version of me that I hope if someone else is experiencing this a few years from now, they can read my stuff and say, okay, I'm not going crazy. Kalina actually was in the same situation. Um, and then I would say when I was really into the whole tech and building my career, I knew that I wanted to build relationships, and I was doing that through customers. So I'm an expert at customer engagement. I've built infrastructures from the ground up for multiple companies that have been hyper growth and then IPO.
Wow.
And for me, it looks easy in my head. It's basically the bare bottom of companies telling me, we have no executive relationships, Kalina. We need you to create these relationships because in order for us to grow, we need our customers to expand with us. So
Right.
I develop communities and platforms and opportunities to get the right people to basically, let's say in this case, this would be a webinar. I would get a customer to come in and tell their journey.
Mhm.
And so if you think about it, those were things that I was mastering, getting to practice while on a company's dime. And so learning what works, what doesn't work. Now, when I think about my own business, I actually understand, okay, this works to pull people in. If you want to build a relationship with someone, give them something that they would like to, like
Mhm.
understand what are their needs. And if you think about it from a customer engagement perspective, your whole job is to understand how can we ensure this customer is satisfied so they will
Right.
stay. If you reverse that, you remove that customer as an avatar and you now put our people. You put our people, you put women of color, you put them as avatar saying, how can I best support you? Well, in
Yeah.
that case, you need resources, you need a platform for them, you need opportunities for them to network. And
Yeah.
so you then build that. And all of a sudden, people that seem so far away from you, that are executives and CEOs and authors, all of a sudden you send them a LinkedIn message and you think, oh, this best selling author will never reply to me. Within 5 seconds, they're like, absolutely. But also there's a reason because you're giving them a platform. You understand what their needs are. So
Right.
I would always feel grateful for my opportunities in tech. And I think also putting the work in and actually understanding this is going to turn into something more,
Mhm.
that has been extremely valuable. And I would say you never know what you're doing that's going to help someone long term. I would say prime example is when I was at one of my startups, I was doing a newsletter every month for customers. And I honestly I was like, why did I get a degree to do a newsletter every month? Like no one's
Right.
reading this. And the open rates were actually the best in the company for emails. And I didn't understand that. I was too busy trying to figure out how to get to manager level. And so I remember a person in customer success, I was still in marketing. He says, Kalina, I was like, just put me in your department now. Like, I just do a newsletter and webinars and stuff. Like, they're not going to miss that. And he had to pull me aside saying, you don't realize how valuable your work is. Like, just because it's a newsletter, you don't realize it's touching our entire customer base. He's like, that's one of the reasons why we want you on our team. You know how to pull them in. So I would
Yeah.
say for individuals that are actually still in tech right now, figuring out like, how do I be the best? But, the things that I'm doing, is it even worth it? Like, am I making an impact? Even if it's super small, you have no idea that maybe 5 years, a year from now, 10 years from now, exactly what you thought was not that important, now all of a sudden becomes your baby because that's how people are reaching out to you. I have a monthly newsletter now, and it's because I understand the framework of it from when I was, a junior person in tech.
Yeah. I'm blown away by what you were able to establish, especially at those beginning years when you were still finding your footing for working in corporate, and now everybody talks about building a community and what that looks like, but you had a head start. So that's amazing. What would you say is the secret to building a great community, one that thrives, you think? What is the secret sauce to it?
I would say authenticity, obviously. I know that's a buzzword. At least last year that was the buzzword, but it's
It
actually true. Authenticity, and I would say content. Um, if you have great content, when I think about why I read something, I always ask myself, like, is it informative?
Yeah.
Um, is it somehow going to help me with what I'm going through right now? Is it educational? And you can tell when something isn't great, you stop reading halfway through. And so I've always learned I will always come back to something if I find that content to be spectacular. And when I say content, that can be a writing piece, that can be an experience, that can be, a network opportunity, even if it's just going to a happy hour. Like, how is it designed? Like, what does that experience look like? So I think that there's three things: being authentic, having amazing content, and then third, providing an experience that will make someone come back.
Yeah.
Um, I would also bring it back to tech. I think one of my customers at Anaplan was Louis Vuitton, and they were doing supply chain with us. And they actually highlighted how there would never be a outlet store because if something is altered or, like a piece is, designed or stitched wrong, they actually destroy the whole thing. It's not going to
Mm.
be discounted. And they said that that's how they keep their experience. The prices will never drop. You will never see anything on sale. And it rocked my brain because in my head I was like, yeah, you're still gonna show up, like you're gonna save all your money at some point and still go get that bag. And
Right.
I realized, how can I create a community like that? To where even if it's hard to get into, even if you have to apply to it, even if you have to get interviewed or pay a fee, what would make you feel excited to get an acceptance letter to the community?
Right.
And that goes to experience, right? And I would say, content wise, like if you get into the community, what can we offer you that makes you go back and talk to someone else about it, refer someone? And that goes back to the customer hat, right? How do you get referrals? And so ultimately, you need to stay authentic. You need to be consistent with your content,
Yeah.
understand who you're speaking with. And then when you log into that community or when you're invited to an event from that community, I want people to be excited, right? Like if you're showing up to an event that I'm hosting under Unapologetic, I want you to figure out how can you get your best outfit.
Yeah.
Are you telling your girlfriends that you're going? Are they coming with you? Compared to the day of, I'm a Virgo, so it's like if I go out the house, I really contemplate, am I really going out the house today? Is it really that important for me to go? I want to figure out, how do I provide you an experience that you're like, no, I'm going, regardless if it's raining or snowing, I'm still going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely matters, like, as Black people say, who all gonna be there, super important, before you step out the door, who all gonna be there. That's real,
Which is so true, and
yeah,
I think connections, they always say like your network becomes your network becomes your net worth.
yep,
That's so true, right? And it's like, even if you think about people raising funds, I do a lot of advising for venture capital firms for their portfolio accounts, and people are always saying, "Oh, there's not enough access, and women of color are not getting funding." But also, I look at, well, who do you know? And like, if, let's say, our connection right now is because of who we knew. Someone thought these are two phenomenal women. Let me
mm,
set up an intro for them.
yeah,
And if you think about it, when it comes to funding, you can have the best idea, but who are you telling that idea to, that instead of taking it or telling you it's a bad idea, actually says, I know someone that
mhm,
would love to hear that idea and they have money and they want to invest in people. Like, I don't, if I personally have relied on all of the people that I've worked with in tech to be able to build Unapologetic, but from a underrepresented community perspective, who can we rely on to actually
yeah,
help us get a check?
right. Right. And usually that is our network and our family and friends. So, sometimes we forget that because we're so busy, looking at other things. But sometimes, the help that you need is right next to you. And you just need
Yeah.
to ask,
And I think that we should define help, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes help does not equate a dollar sign, right? Sometimes help is people giving their time or people giving you their expertise.
Yeah.
So Unapologetic was built off of just complete volunteers, right? So
Yeah.
I think about my website, the designs, I think about the community. It was everyone that, quite frankly, are very expensive people that, by the hour I could not afford them. And I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
I really need a website. And I have a friend that's like, oh, okay, I'll build you a website, but you need the designs clean up before I build a website. So I have an amazing friend that's a designer, a award-winning designer that I met in tech. I said, hey, I really need designs. I have this idea of like creating, a podcast and then this. And for someone that, does this for a living, he's like, okay, I think this would be a good idea. I'll sketch you some ideas. But you have to think about your, I think, I would say, level of connections, right? Because if
Right.
you're saying, hey, I want someone to give me X amount of dollars, that's just money. You want people to invest in you because of your vision. You want them to invest in you because of the relationship they have with you. Because
Right.
regardless if it succeeds or not, they're always going to support you. And they're actually not looking for something in return. They're actually just looking to be a part of something with you.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that that's something that I'm learning still. Is knowing who to reach out to, and you're right. It's not always about money. Sometimes it is about that person just encouraging you, sharing their resources, sharing their expertise. And sometimes that is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on that. So, I think some of us are way more fortunate than we realize. I know that, Unapologetic is a brand, it's a platform, it's a podcast, it's all these things, but I'm curious to find out though, when you were in corporate, when did you decide that it was time for you to go all in? Because as you know, we have a lot of excuse me, Black women that are out there who are trying to do the same thing. How do you know when it's time to pull the trigger? We've got Black women being the fastest group of entrepreneurs, that's out there. How do you know when it's a time to go all in? And when did you know for you?
For me, I would say, okay, so I got Forbes and it completely changed my world for the best, but also I had to go through a lot of unfortunate changes too. Like you think that people love you, they don't. You think that corporate is like going to be thrilled for you, they're not. The bigger you get without them being able to control it, you would think that it's like, oh, let's celebrate this individual. It's like, no, it's like we can't own her yet. Like what's going on? That's something that we should be able to navigate. So I would say once I got Forbes, all of a sudden my speaking engagements, I didn't need to have the company logo. They just wanted me and unapologetic. And for the first time, I was so used to doing all these speaking engagements, but having to go through normal approvals, and I was always supporting the company that I was with. And for the first time, people were like, "No, we just want you to talk about your podcast, how you did this, how you got Forbes," and that was a game changer because all of a sudden, instead of getting super excited about these opportunities, and you have people that are like, "Oh, fly you to Canada. We just want you to do this." You don't realize that the company that you're with, all of a sudden, you're now having friction with their PR team, and not to a point where something's wrong with them. It's just they're doing their job. They want to elevate their brand. You work for their company, and in exchange, if you're going to be out there speaking, they want you to name drop them. Why would you name
Absolutely.
drop, your podcast when instead you work for them? They're paying you. You're supposed to be name dropping them all the time, and
Yeah.
they're supposed to narrate your storytelling and what you're actually bringing to the table. And I would say when that started happening, where I was like, no, I remember one PR person at my previous company. She was a German woman. I was on a speaking panel about being a Black, executive at a young age. And she's like, well, I want to write your answer for you. And she's a German woman. I was like, well, how are you going to write my answer?
Yeah.
And, I was flying to Canada. She was texting me at like midnight saying, I would please, like a response, for, how you're going to navigate this. And I have some thoughts. And I said, respectfully, I think that I'm the best person to talk about my experience. Um, and I think that once that happened, you realize all money isn't good money, and you
Mm,
realize your
that
freedom
part.
sometimes trumps, navigating the security of being at a corporate company. And I would say if I didn't get Forbes, I don't think I would have been so anal about what I'm going to put up with and what I'm not going to put up with, because you
Yes.
don't realize you're doing your brand now, like you're
Mm,
representing yourself. And the moment you actually sacrifice your morals, your well being for a company that their morals might not align with yours, you're doing a disservice not just to yourself, but you're doing a disservice to the people that are watching you and are saying, hey, I would like to be like that one day.
mhm.
So it's almost like you look at your morals and all of a sudden there's this big pot of money and you're like, oh, I can have that lifestyle. And you're like, then there's that nervous path where it's like you're free as a butterfly, right? But you're like, oh,
Right.
who's going to catch me if something goes wrong? But you can't put a price on freedom. You can't put a
No.
price on, freedom of speech and like being able to go to sleep at night knowing that what you did was helping someone and you were able to remain authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, let's show some love emojis for that. You said nothing but a word there, Kalina. Cannot put a price tag on that. Can't be selling your soul at any every and anybody, right? So, one of the things that I think has changed recently in your life is you becoming a mom.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
Thank
And
you.
what I want to know is, how has that changed you, and has it increased or decreased your drive
Oh
or
no.
ambition? Okay.
I think you look, I have a beautiful son, beautiful baby boy that already has mama's attitude and doesn't take much mess. He wants his way. But also, you look at this pure soul that like laughs at you and smiles at you every morning and every night. And you want them to have the best. And I think for any underrepresented community member, whether you're Black, a minority, an immigrant,
Yeah.
you're always taught that your family, they sacrifice so much for you to have your lifestyle. But
Yeah.
then in return, when you have a family, you're supposed to be able to give your child even more. So when you start thinking about that mentality of like, I had a pretty good life because my parents sacrificed, how can I give even more to my son? All of a sudden your drive is even, further elevated because you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I had this, so now he has to have that. And then also you think about your time. So I'm a big fan of being present. And so those long hours that I used to give to the tech companies, just because you just wanted a meeting with me where I didn't even talk in the meeting, but you wanted my face there and you wanted my body there, you just want me to sit there while I listen to your PowerPoint that could have been done on a webinar, not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
But when you need me to present and get buy-in and actually get something moving, I'm your girl. I can navigate that. But I would say time is so precious. So
Yeah.
being a mom, I have truly outlined my currency is equated into time that I give to someone or a company
Yes.
or the project. Even for Unapologetic, I love my baby, but I also have a real baby now. And so,
Right.
yes, the podcast is great, but maybe, the newsletter used to be weekly. No, the newsletter is monthly now. Why is that? Because I have someone that needs me every day. That's more important.
Yes.
So I would say being a mom elevated my expectations of myself, and figuring out how was I going to be the best in every aspect, but also prioritizing with that. If you look at a pie, right, and you look at, okay, who gets this, who gets that,
Yeah.
you're able to really navigate, how you can actually go to sleep at night and still feel successful. And also, I would say saying no.
Oh,
I would say
yes.
politely, but also being very stern. At first, I was a yes person that always
Mm.
wanted to please everybody. But now
Yeah,
I realize if I'm healthy, that means my baby's healthy. And
absolutely.
so I want to make sure that when I think about time, how can I be the best for him? And also, if
Mhm.
I'm the best for him, then I'm the best in all aspects of the rest of my life too.
Yes.
So just being able to be real with myself, be a great mom, also rely on support too. I was a person that never really raised my hand saying, "Oh, I need some help." Oh no, I'm definitely the person that's like order of operation. Got the father here saying, "Okay, you're gonna do this." You got the mother here. You got the mother-in-law here.
Yes.
Everybody has a place.
Yes, that
But you
community,
got friends coming out of
the
nowhere.
village,
You need help.
the
I'm like,
village.
yeah, I actually need help. I have a call at this time. Can you be here at this time and watch him at this time? Um,
Love
so I would say relying on your village and actually
that.
scoping out your village, right?
Yeah,
So figuring out who, in this case, your executive sponsors are, right? Um,
right.
and so I would say being a mom has made me an even better entrepreneur,
Yeah.
um, because time is very crucial. And I would say being able to be assertive and tell people, here's your place, not in a negative way, but basically saying like, how can I make you the best in my world
Right.
and you feel valued as well from me, is putting structure.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, if you're going to be successful, all you're doing is putting structures in place every day.
Yes. Yes. Amen to that. Well, I know, as you said, time is precious and limited. Where can we find you if we want to work with you? Because I know you have an empire to build. Where should we find you?
So if you want quick direct messages, LinkedIn me. You know that LinkedIn is gold right now when it comes to the DMs.
Yes.
But I would say speaking engagements, KalinaBryant.com. My team answers all the inquiries. We are gearing up for 2024. A lot of exciting things. Tune into the podcast. I do weekly polls too to see what people want to hear, so that navigates how we're bringing in the different guests. But I would say speaking engagements, any type of inquiries about podcasts, sponsorships. We're gearing up for our season 7 of the podcast. So if you have any resources or want to be a part of it, feel free to DM me, and then also leverage KalinaBryant.com.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kalina, for joining us today. You are amazing. Continued success to you in all your endeavors. And I can't wait to see how far you continue to go. So thank you for being here today.
Thank
Thank you, everyone, for watching. And I will see you next week for another episode of Too Ambitious. Bye, everyone.